is Cronjob all about, and what's the value prop here?
Yeah, so Cronjob allows you to schedule recurring API calls. So that's similar to cron jobs, but they're just all in the cloud. It's easy to use, easy to configure, and it integrates with services such as Zapier or Make, which essentially allows you to do anything when you receive or send the schedule. You can send an SMS, a Slack message, update your database, essentially anything you would have as a recurring task. So there are a few services similar to this, but the value proposition here is the ease of use and the ease of configuration that we bring to the table.
Okay, perfect. And what I'll go to here is the view of current traffic and position across your pages. And it's important for us to get a sense of how you are currently approaching content so that we can build on that ecosystem or the ecosystems that you currently have with new content ideas led by primary, or in this case, root keywords. So first thing that we want to do here is break down the website between the different page types. So you have your home, but then you also have 4 blogs supporting long form content. You have your pricing page, but then most of your pages are debuggers, split between examples and help. And it's important for us to take note of that because we're getting almost 100% of our traffic coming through the debuggers, split between, again, the help and examples. And what we want to do is understand the intent behind those users by looking at the primary keyword. And that would then allow us to validate or reject the current content that is represented by said intent via keyword. So in other words, we have here cron tab every 15 minutes, or let's say cron Monday to Friday. Question 1 is the page that we're serving, where we're currently ranking number 13, doing the right job communicating that information or the value that we're delivering on this page? And if there are gaps in that value, that is where we can expand on a page. But if there is misalignment in value with intent, then we need to reprioritize that keyword either for a new page that will be more aligned, or find another page here that better aligns with that keyword opportunity. So the last thing that we want here is to run into cannibalization issue where we're ranking for the same keyword across different pages.
Yeah, that's so a lot of these examples, just to give you a bit of backstory, there's maybe a few thousand of them, and a lot of them have been done with programmatic SEO. So there are a few that are specific, that address common issues of people trying to schedule things, and a lot of them that, as you say, cannibalize on the same keyword are actually generated with code. And they basically have, they show an example, and then they're quite light on content. So I think that's maybe one of the first things, is to figure out if this is actually a bad approach to start with. And I shouldn't have done that. I should have kept the quality ones and not auto-generate a bunch of examples for code.
Yeah, auto-generating is fine as long as we're being specific and descriptive with our framing. So if we're feeding the right information and not generic information, that's where we're going to find wins. But in this case, we don't have much opportunity or real estate to do that because, as you mentioned, it's very thin on content, and we're being very generic with our heading structure, for example. And that is where we can take a similar approach, but make sure that we have a classification system so that we know what we're trying to rank for those specific type of pages. Because there has to be a purpose. There has to be an objective behind it. If it's missing an objective, then it's not a valid reason for it to exist.
Yeah, got it. So the generic objective of these pages are, or the marketing approach, if you want, are a person lands on them, sees an example, and then they think, well, I could use this service to schedule the job. It looks nice. Let me sign up and give it a try. And sometimes that's true. Other times people want to actually put that on a server somewhere, right? That could be a case where they actually don't want to do it online. They have a server running and they want to manually put this there. But that's the overall purpose of all of them, is to funnel users through these examples and get them to sign up for the service. Does that make sense?
Of course. So if we're looking at this page, what would be the keyword that somebody searches on Google looking for this page?
Yeah, this one would be the question. So they wouldn't do an exact question, but they would do, the exact keyword would be cron job every Monday to Friday, or cron job every Monday to X day. And you see, sometimes that is a question if it's a long tail keyword. Sometimes it's literally just cron tab every Monday, and that's it. That's
Yeah, so we just have to do a better job appearing for those specific terms, not necessarily generic terms, or try to eliminate the appearance for generic terms. So reframing the page outline, the template, where you're still taking the same automated approach, but you're being much more specific, tailored towards the need that we know that the user has looking for this question.
Yeah. One way to do that comes to mind is to have similar questions here, because what you saw as the keyword that this is ranking for is not exactly what the page is showing. I believe the keyword was Monday to Friday, and this one is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right? Which is not exactly the same thing that the person was searching for. So I'm thinking here, if we would have common examples for Monday and Friday, for example, that could actually bring more value to the user and actually get them the answer that they need, instead of a close answer, but not quite what they're looking for.
A good segue into the roadmap, because that will uncover the opportunities that exist around those main intents, or let's call them questions. And it's important for us to understand what the breakdown, or at least the hierarchy of those questions are. So if we're looking at this question, that will lead up to, or at least have a common denominator that we can link to another question that is within that realm. So as you mentioned, categorizing those questions is a good idea, because that will then allow us to build an environment that we have more control over, and we can easily help the user navigate towards the answer, but also house a general perspective on scheduling every Monday, for example, or scheduling during the week, or in this case, that is broken down into cron every 12 hours, every 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we go into weekday, week. So each one of those being a hub to the list of questions that will live underneath.
Yeah. So perhaps the simpler version, which is, or what you're showing here, probably the most common version too, could be the hub, and then underneath you can have a few more specific similar pages with essentially examples of certain hours or certain days or certain months for that overarching keyword or hub.
Exactly. That depends on how deep you want to go into the segmentation. Ultimately, you want to line up one-to-one with user intent. So if a user is looking for a specific type of answer, the best way to do that is to have the environment tailored around that answer, or tailored around the answer. But that all is going to build into a system, as opposed to getting there from A to Z. It's step by step. How do we ensure we have top level coverage? From there, going deeper and then starting to expand into different pages, or dedicated pages in this case. So that is what we're looking at here, which is not just cron every seed, but also cron as a top level seed to see what other opportunities exist within cron itself, opportunities that exist within cron calculator as a seed, opportunities that exist within examples, expression maker, cron expression, formatting, and scheduler. Now, how we got, and I mentioned earlier, we're looking at root opportunities, so root keywords, each one of them representing a potential page that can live on the website that, again, caters to a specific user and intent. With each keyword, we have the volume locally in the US, the keyword difficulty, a general representation of friction to the user on organic, the average authority in measure of domain rating that exists across first 10, the traffic mark, so what is the traffic that's being generated by a given keyword to a URL or a result that exists on the first page that we know comes with the second lowest authority. That way we're able to validate a route to top 10 by focusing on 80-20, other results that have made it to the user, while relying on less or lower authority than the average, but as well looking at the leader who is number one on the search engine results pages, so that we're able to get a second reference there to what that content could potentially look like for each of the keywords that we have. How we got to this point was on the roadmap here. We started off by adding our first topic, which is cron, being very generic, top level. And we got a list of, from the seed, a list of root keywords, a list of page opportunities. And each page opportunity is a type of content. So that page can be a roundup type content. It can be a solution type content, or it can be a guide how-to content for the keyword. It's determined based off of what is currently performing well on Google. And we're able then, and then we're able to take this a step further by finding other opportunities that live around a given route. So going through this list here, we're seeing, okay, cron guru, we have branded term, scheduler cron schedule. We have several schedule keywords. We have the cron every 5 minutes, cron job calculator. Okay, so we like cron job calculator. We see potential there because that keyword comes with good volume. Actually, I'm making it up. It's not actually a good keyword because it's very competitive, but let's assume it is.
The below is maybe easier to rank for because of the difficulty.
Sure. This one here would be a slightly different method that I would take, because I would see cron every 5 minutes. I would also see another every hour, for example. And that would lead me to assume there is a trend here. So I would take the common denominator, cron job every, and I would plug that in as a new topic, which I did right here, cron every.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was able to cluster all the different framing of the cron jobs that are required. Okay, 12 hours every day, 30 minutes every Sunday, and so on. And we have our data to support or push us away from a certain opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
The second approach would be a direct move of one of those pages to expand it. So there are two actions that we're looking to take here. Let's go back into cron. So we have cron log. Cool. We want to explore this a little more. And we know that can support its own cluster of pages, so its own ecosystem. If that is a valid argument, then we can take that from being a root of cron. We're going to move it to its own seed. And now we can dive into cron log by finding similar keywords that belong to that ecosystem. And in about 2 minutes, we'll have a list of keywords to dive into. In the meantime, I looked at cron debugger, seeing as how that is one of the major let's call them positions taken at least on the URL level.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're looking at the opportunities are very scarce.
Mo,
Not a lot.
Zoom in again.
Sorry?
Can you zoom in again, Mo? It's too blurry.
How's it?
Same for the sheet. Cheers.
All right. Cron command tester, cron string. We can see that very little on volume and little on as well general opportunities or the count. Cron calculator was one of the ones that interested me looking at the cron general seed. So that was moved into its own seed and expanded. So we have underneath cron calculator, cron job calculator, cron expression validator, expression calculator, expression description, or descriptor rather.
Yeah.
Okay. So each one of those being a potential opportunity for us to tap into, again, based off of the measurements that we're seeing here, should we lean towards or against a given keyword.
So how do you approach this now that the existing keyword has very little volume, relatively speaking? We found better ones. Would you, the tool would be the same, right? Because the ultimate result is a place where people can put in a cron and see the text description and perhaps a visual indication and maybe some text. But no matter which keyword you use, the tool would be the same. Would you add supporting blog posts for this, or would you go towards a keyword that we find here that probably has a little bit less difficulty and try to rework the existing keywords towards that, or rework the URLs even towards that?
Yeah, so that all comes down to what we're seeing on SERPs. So depending on what the user is being served now, that's where we want to position ourselves. And it's important that we have a more holistic view of the standings, which is why we look at the leads and as well the low DR. So it's important for us, regardless of where we're at now, to align with what the user is currently engaging with.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for the word cron, and I don't know how they pull this off. But cron.com is actually a venture startup that does calendars. It has nothing to do with cron jobs, and they completely took over this keyword. I know if you figured that out. So I guess what you see with the stocks as well, and some of the investment-related topics are related to that VC-funded company and not to the cron schedules themselves. I see a couple of those at the top.
Yeah, and we saw that there was alignment on SERPs, but we know there is an alignment internally with our core product. So that is where we can cancel that out of the equation entirely and be left with a list or short list of keywords that we know are going to support the cause and ultimately provide value to the user. And that's what we're looking at here, which is a direct export of what we have here. We'll let cron log finish, but as I mentioned, there were a few other seeds.
Yeah. And while this loads, if you
go ahead.
Yeah, 1 minute. I actually wanted to ask about the general approach now, because I see there are a few long tail-ish keywords that have a approachable keyword difficulty, but most of the cron syntax checker, for example, right, or the more how would you call this? They're shorter, more generic keywords. They could be seeds. They have very high keyword difficulty. Is it even possible to approach those, or you need to rank for the long tail ones first, and at a later point go for these, right?
Okay, so the first thing to keep in mind is just because we're not going to rank for a given keyword in the short term doesn't mean we shouldn't produce content for it, because you're absolutely right. We do need to start to structure around that core topic so that we're able to build our overall authority and show that we are contributing the right type of information that ladders up to in this case, let's say cron expressions. So how are we able to segment or break down cron expressions into sub or long tails that we can tackle and see some sort of momentum within the short term while we build towards the core or parent? But that parent should exist because part of that strategy is going to be internal linking and bridging the different content that exists around cron expressions, or the parent in this case.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
How are we for Zoom, by the way?
It's fine for me. I don't know. Stefan, are you okay?
Yeah, it's not me, it's the stream, like on Twitter, but I feel like something's up today with Twitter itself, or X or whatever, because even like our faces are quite blurry, so it's not just the screen. It's almost like the whole quality is pretty bad.
My face is usually blurry anyway.
Yeah, we'll get this re-uploaded afterwards too.
Yeah, well, we can also try, YouTube or something for streaming, but obviously it's harder to tap into the Twitter features in that case for promoting it.
Yeah.
All right, no worries. All right, so going through the list here, is there anything that sticks out that is a strong opportunity on the alignment side? Forgetting about market signals for a minute. What here aligns and fills a gap where we don't have content that speaks to a specific topic, but that topic will highly align with core product?
Yeah, I'd imagine the node ones could be a good, so cronjob node, node.js, or node.js. They could be a good opportunity because people searching for that, there's really no good way to do it. I mean, you can implement recurring schedules, but these are definitely potential customers that would think, okay, this is too hard to do on my own. I just have a node server, maybe, or a serverless kind of thing, which is difficult to add this. So they would land on this page. I could provide a helpful guide to do it for Node. That's fine. But then also say, well, you might want to try the service instead because it's easier to get started. So helpful content plus sort of a funnel to the service. That could be an idea.
All right. And that idea looks pretty strong on low difficulty. When we're looking at average DR, it's pretty high relative to the general average. When we're looking at our low DR mark, we have a 59 and an 85, all of this relative to our 25. So that would then, so yeah. What I'd want to do here is I'll take cronjob node, throw it in as, actually, no, in this case, I'll move it. So we'll search for it here. And then we're going to go into add similar keywords.
Yeah.
So running the algorithm for discovery to find page opportunities that fall within or hover around cronjob node, where we can expect early success while we work towards long-term.
Yeah. So would the approach here be to have, say, cronjob node as a hub page and then have a few sub pages for whatever we come up with from this exercise here?
Well, that depends, right? Because we can work up or we can work down. If we're working up towards, in this case, cron job general, or for tech, different types of or different avenues of tech, let's say, then there would be a ladder up. But if the cron job node we see as a parent of a hierarchy or an ecosystem, then in that case, yes, that would be the very top, leading into our core brand page. Our home.
Got it. Yeah.
Alrighty, so we have cron log, which has been running for a few minutes now. Stefan, do we have any insight on the back end? Did we install?
I'm looking at it. I'll let you know.
So Stefan is the back end. Good.
I am getting out my research tools to look up the keywords now.
Awesome.
Schedule example. Let's look at this one here. So we have a page that we're happy with. That's been validated, and we know aligns on the product side, aligns on the market side. Let's assume this aligns on the market. You know what? No, let's actually find something that aligns. Cron schedule format. We have fair volume. We have high KD. We have low traffic mark. Let's skip that one. Cron time, 72, 62. Let's actually start to sort.
Expression generator, was that good?
Yeah, nothing stands out in cron scheduler. Maybe
or rather, they're quite difficult.
Tell me again, where?
That's fine. I think it was high difficulty too.
Okay. If we go into our roadmap, we'll find our average DR. Cron expression translator.
I mean, validator could be a good one too.
Which one?
This is the very first
Evaluator?
one. Validator. Yeah. hey, that could be okay volume, right? Because it's relative. Is it likely that you get more or less of that volume, relatively speaking? It's probably not an exact measure, I imagine.
Yeah, no, it's not an exact measure. We'll never get an exact measure. We don't have access to Google's database, so we're going to have to either tap into a database or work different metrics to compose a different view. So in this case, when we're looking at volume, we can get a pretty good idea of exposure level, but traffic mark can get tricky with keywords that are more niche, that are not going to provide us with as much as, let's say, a broader keyword. So in this case, we'll go with the metrics that we have in volume, KD, and authority mark, knowing as well what that authority mark is for that keyword.
Oh, that's great. That's an opportunity there.
Yeah, the reason why we're not getting the count for traffic mark.
That makes sense.
Right,
yeah,
so
that would be an example of a free tool that you built next to what I have.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and create now this page, knowing as well cron expression validator, that can be a in direct alignment with success. It'll be a solution page, but also can have long form attributes that we can, in one way or another, validate a blog to this keyword here. So that would mean we would switch from that being a solution to a blog if we know that there is friction, or there is traction rather in this case, on the SERP side for blogs on this keyword. So it's not always going to be, it's not always going to be what we're seeing in the marker there. So in some cases, it would be good to get a different view. And in this case, we have heavy alignment on the tool side or the solution side. So we stick with solution.
So one approach could be to have a blog where you do a comparison / overview of all the tools if you have a lot of tools. So now we saw this keyword is heavily dominated by tools. If you were to do a blog post where, for example, you compared all these tools, would you have any chance of ranking, do you think? Would that be a good idea?
Yeah, and that all comes down to, again, what is relative to what we're seeing here. So if we're seeing traction on long form, or in this case, roundup content for a given keyword, then that would validate the approach of producing similar roundup content. But that, again, comes down to what is winning? What is winning with the least effort? So if a roundup has lower authority and is appearing on top 10 versus number 1, which can be a solution page, then this is enough validation for us to produce a roundup to enter the equation.
Got it. Yeah.
All right. Stefan, any word on the discovery for the other two?
No, I'm just seeing that it's timing out.
We have Cronjob. We have Cronjob Node.
Okay.
So Cronjob Node, Node.js Cronjob examples, Node Cronjob every day. Task scheduler. Okay, so this is high level background job automation, Node.js cron. Okay, so cron. So we have a couple here that do align. We have a couple that should be deleted from the roadmap, but this gives us a good view of the ecosystem around Node and how that might look for others and others within a certain, in this case, let's say tech column. So how does that then align with our examples or other example pages, and as well the every cron job every category? So that would mean we should, in theory, going back to the roadmap, for Node, have a scheduler, and then we would have cron job Node, for example, which we would reclassify as a blog. And if you hear that are also similar, so we would get those out of the system so that we're not running into cannibalization.
Yeah, how do you decide which one to pick? Did they have similar volumes or?
So the one that we just took out had very similar
okay, good.
results. Okay, so that would then, with 1, 2, 3 pages, we would have that ecosystem supporting Node, but then we would look at what are the other options outside of Node where we can start to explore and produce some sort of value for the user. So Python, for example, would be a different avenue.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, there is a Python there.
Java we have here.
Yeah, so you could take the major backend languages
and replicate that approach.
Yeah, awesome.
Alrighty, so Dan, a couple of opportunities here that we are going to be migrating over to your account. And the next steps here would be, after validating or prioritizing the top opportunities based off of the market signals and the other attributes we mentioned, it would be running through the next stage, which is creating the actual content. And that is determining the type and then creating the brief. Now, there are two different approaches. There is manual approach where if you'd want to override the branch keywords, because each one of these pages will come with a set of hyper-focused keywords that need to live on that page that support this route. So it's not other pages that support the ecosystem, but other keywords that support that specific page. And we might want to have a hand in selecting, removing, and modifying those keywords. And that is where manual override comes in. And we can run the same function that we did here with expanding on specific keywords to find similar keywords in that space or in that bracket. Or we can let the tool choose based off of an algorithm that looks at the successes on the top 20 and delivers a list that is based off of the market signals that we looked at, and as well other signals relating to the relevance. So how relevant is a given keyword to cron expression evaluator? And as long as we have relevance, in other words, as long as we have a page that is ranking for a keyword that another page is also ranking for, and we have, or rather the vice versa of that, with the keyword appearing across two pages, then we have relevance factor and we can incorporate it into that page. So what that ultimately sets us up with is from root, from page parent keyword to a ready for content writer outline that has our headings, that has specific keywords that need to be injected into the content, and that has specific guidelines for the content writer to take it from outline into
an actual article.
content completion.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah.
Right.
So would you do a brief for a number of these, or would you take it one at a time? What's a good workflow? Or would you do several articles for one of the keywords? Just in general, what's a reasonable approach to have?
So in your case, we're not dealing with too many attributes that split up or create more segmentation within our categories. So it would be seed level focused. And what that means is the first sprint, I would focus on cron every, for example, and tackle the list of opportunities that we have here based off of highest exposure, lowest friction. And then once that's out the way, I would move into the second set of pages, knowing that each seed comes with different sets of page types that we can then reinforce a parent with. So it's not going to be sporadic where we're focusing, starting off with long form and then moving into short form, or top of funnel and then moving into bottom of funnel. We want to tackle it based off of ecosystems. In other words, we want to tackle based off of seeds. And if we can break this down even more, so we have, in this case, would be a new column where we're breaking down all of our node, okay, and we do the same thing with all the others, or take a different approach where we're classifying based off of the intent. So is it an example? Is it a what is? Is it a utility-based search? And that would then allow us to get a more hyper focus on the categories, or it wouldn't be seed level. It would be, let's think of it as category level in this case. Okay. Now you'd want to produce content that is at pace with what you can do internally while maintaining high quality standards. But ultimately, content is something that is continuous, that you need to be adding on, not just on the automated front, but long form that contributes to the conversations that users are having out there. So that would be I would say a good pace to start off with is 10 to 15, if you have the capacity for that. But on the lower end, if you're doing everything manually and taking your time with the content, probably 5 would be a good place to start. And that would be 5 pages per month. And then again, scaling as your capabilities grow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Alrighty, so we have the page here producing. Not sure if we're going to have enough time to see that all the way through, but this is going to be a good start-off point where at least we have a view of the market. We know how that is broken down into different metrics that we can read into, making sure, again, that we're looking at not just our leads, but also who is getting there with low authority. And then next step from there is how do we prioritize based off of what we care about the most on the product side, and what is going to get us the most exposure with the least amount of friction.
Yeah, that's also the question. I think in this case, you don't know exactly how the conversion is going to go for each keyword until you start getting some clicks, because I have a hunch the Node one's going to work, but it might not. But maybe the Linux one's going to work instead. So even though you get the clicks, the volume, or maybe you even start ranking on the first page for some of the keywords, the conversion might be poor. And then in that case, well, you just can't know because it's specific to my product, right? That's just something I have to go through to figure out. Yeah. Oh, you got the brief.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. The brief on the left-hand side, the outline on the right. And again, it's important for us to run through and make sure that we have the right structuring of content, that we are aligning on the solution side of things. Right now, we have edits and updates that are happening on the brief side, where we're trying to align with our target page. And in some cases, we're going to find target pages that are solutions that resemble a how-to or a guide. And a lot of that is based on what we're seeing on SERPs and what's doing well. But there are improvements that are happening to the algorithm that will help us better shape those pages to resemble targets.
So actually, /solutions, is that a thing that you'd recommend, or is that just an example in this case in the below URL?
Yeah, so you should definitely have solution class pages, and that will allow the user to get a better input on what is on that page just through the URL read. So I would have that as a I would have that as a URL.
I mean, one of the myths that I hear is that it's sometimes better to have it as a root page, but it probably depends what that page is. Let's say this one would be a content hub type page. Would you still put it under solutions, or would you put it under the root of the page?
Yeah, if it's content, if it's a blog, it'll be a blog.
Yeah. Okay.
Blog, yeah. And that's where on the roadmap we would adjust the page type from being a solution target to a either how-to blog or a roundup. In this case, we saw that it was high density on solution pages.
Yeah.
Or knowing that there is solution intent because there are home pages. Yeah. So in this case, that can represent a very top level intent. There are tools, let's say, built around that specific function or use case. But that all comes down to, again, relativity, how that's performing on Google.
Yeah.
The other one also finished, by the way. I reran it. And I also ran it back up with a clustering at the bottom. Cronlog.
Remind me again which one that was.
That one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, cronlog output. View cronlog location for Mac. All right, so let's say cronlog. This would be our seed and or at least the root of the seed, cronlog. And we would create that, knowing that we're going to have other pages in the vicinity through the other opportunities that exist here as well. So writing about output, macros, Mac.
Yeah.
So, and I have much more confidence in our abilities to generate how-tos in the very short term, and expanding our capabilities into reviews and solution pages moving into the next few weeks.
Very cool. The brief, is that, if you can go back to it, if you still have it somewhere?
Yeah. So we're going to look for our first brief here.
Yeah. You have a next step where you export it or hand it over somehow, or is that the finalized? Oh, you could just copy to Google Doc. Yeah.
And we are, one of the updates that we're working in is an editor in app, so that you're able to use chat to modify and get it closer to what you're looking to execute or publish.
Yeah. All right, even media ideas. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Just waiting for this one. Hopefully we have that. Nope, still producing. So yeah, so Dan, we'll leave this with you to explore and digest, and as well, I'll send over the sheet to Stefan and shoot over to you.
That's brilliant.
And this will give you a more sort of touched up, polished version of what we're looking at here, but it is essentially an export of what we have on SwiftBrief.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge value. I did a similar exercise on Ahrefs, right, where you might arrive at a similar thing, but it's a lot more manual, and then it's a lot harder to do what you did, where you say, okay, let's make this one a topic and dig into it and sort of find the long tail keywords automatically, as opposed to going for every single one of them. It looks like actually an efficient way to do it, as opposed to doing it on Ahrefs.
Yeah, the same just general workflow that we would do on Ahrefs or SEMrush, looking at other keywords that are ranking in results that we know are ranking for our seed, and finding a way to cluster and present it in a way where it is categorized and classified and page type. So the same process where we're doing that on Ahrefs, but again, automated and much more tailored.
Yeah. So, love it. It's great. I mean, I have a lot of ideas. I can't wait to write some things. Maybe dig a bit deeper and see. I kind of let it be for a while, and then I see there are a lot of opportunities on the table, and also some mistakes that I've made that kind of cannibalize some of my own pages that are started to rank. So definitely a lot to do from here on out.
Yeah, you're not in too bad of a position. You're still, under 100 pages, so still a lot that can be done without jeopardizing much here. But yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. Reach out. We'll shoot this over to get you set up, and
Awesome.
as well as some credits on the account to get you moving forward with briefs.